Hi, this is Mayank, and I welcome you all to Srijan Wednesday webinars. For those who are attending for the first time, this is a community initiative by Srijan Technologies. As a part of this initiative, we host webinars every alternate Wednesday. We get speakers from different domains who talk about subjects like front-end technologies, UI UX, mobile apps, media, entrepreneurship, digital marketing, and many more. Today's webinar titled The Importance of Growth is focused on how an important way to lead a fulfilling and enriching life is to be steadfast about your own personal growth. In this webinar, questions like what does personal growth mean? What does it take to grow? What can stop us from growing? And how one can grow will be addressed by the speaker. With lessons from Scott M Peck, Covey, Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, and many others, you will be nudged into an introspective mode. I would now like to introduce our speaker. We have with us Rahul. Rahul is the founder and CEO at Srijan. He is a Drupal and open source evangelist who has a keen interest in incubating social and for-profit tech businesses. He is also a green activist and practices yoga and meditation. He airs his political and religious views unabashedly on Twitter. You can follow him at Rahul. So without taking up any more time, let's get started. Rahul, over to you.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mayank. Hello, everyone. I hope my voice is all clear. So, it's a little difficult every time when you have to talk to a computer and without any reactions and, people nodding their heads and all. So give me 30 seconds and I'll sort of be in flow and get used to this. So, this presentation is very close to my heart. This is on personal growth. I head Srijan, I founded the company, and Srijan has always been, led by me in a very sort of coaching style, if you like, right? That's something I learned from all the great people I met in life and the wonderful books that I came across, and reading through them. Did a lot of experiments in Srijan with people over here who've been sort of scapegoat, some of them, but it's been very fulfilling. Certainly for me, and I'm fairly sure for a lot of other people. And so what I'm presenting here is a lot of learning from life, things I've collected over many years. This is not from 1 or 2 years. I'm talking about 10, 12 years, actually much more. I'm going to be 40, and so I'm actually easily talking about 20 years of either reading books that I've come across, landmark books, the books, life before and after those books and people. And so this is a little bit of an outpouring, and so I request you to have a little openness, when you go through this, when you go through the webinar and hear me. And please, I would really love to have questions from you, and love to engage now and perhaps later on a URL through a commenting system or something. So this talk is about you. It's about your growth. So stay with me. Let's get focused, and let's roll. So I want to share how do we usually live, right? And this is not only about you. This has been about me and continues to be about me. I certainly am a little more conscious about it. That does not mean you are not. The fact that you are on this presentation also says a lot about all of you. So, I've discovered that very often we are happy with our career choice, especially true for Indians, and we turn to blaming our parents. We're unhappy about our work, and of course the boss is horrible. We would change our job, and chances are that we would land up with a similar boss or the similar challenges, up and down the ladder. We run into health problems and blame our genetics. Very often it's not uncommon to find people who will say that, oh yeah, my heart disease runs in the family, or diabetes or blood pressure. Yeah, my parents had it, my grandfather had it, and all that. Yeah, and then if you're living in a large metro anywhere in the world, you would grunt it out 2, 3 hours, 4 hours on a road and vent it out on your wife and parents when you reach home. We often don't get married to the girl we loved or the boy we loved and blame our parents for not letting me decide. I say that with caution once again. This is very central to a very Indian, South Asian, or slightly more conservative society's mindset, if you like. Perhaps, certainly, probably not true in the Western society. Of course, if the marriage runs into trouble, we have our fate to blame. Our appraisals and feedback at work points to skills and attitude gaps, and we prefer to change the job rather than work at ourselves and try and find out really what's going on, what's going wrong. We find a dirty toilet somewhere in any public space and we leave it dirtier. If we're not happy with the politics in our country, we blame the system or blame the politicians. If our health sucks, we drag our diseased and sick bodies, but we choose status quo over uncomfortable and massive life changes. We kill our passions slowly, steadily over months and years instead of somehow finding time to keep those alive. Life goes by and we look back and say, oh, this was a passion I had, but life took over, as if life is something so bad that it took over and killed everything that we wanted to live for. We get consumed by life, dedicated to somebody in the family, to our family, wife and children, sometimes to a dog also. Our parents, once again, especially true from an Indian, South Asian sort of context where aging parents and you would turn your life upside down for them. Nothing wrong with it. I'm just pointing out that this is how we live. And very often we screw our lives or screw our aspirations and passions in doing some of these things. I'm not judging right or wrong, okay? That's for you to choose and judge. So essentially life is difficult. The first sentence of a wonderful book that I'm just going to touch upon called Road Less Traveled by a psychologist or psychiatrist in the US in the 70s, Scott M Peck. The book starts with this sentence. When I came across that book, I'm guessing about 15 to 20 years ago, this sentence just relieved me so much. I thought it was only my life which was very difficult, but this man, having sold 10 million copies back then, right, 15, 20 years ago, and he was saying life is difficult. Obviously these 20 million people, 10 million people, whoever read the book must have read it because there was something up in their life, something more that they were seeking, some answer to a problem, right? And they must have read this. So I felt as if, okay, it's not only me. Life is supposedly meant to be difficult. And it is. And the whole book is about life is difficult and what we can do about it. But let me stay with that. So, of course, we really wish it was easier, right? But it is not. Life is not easy. It is difficult. But can we do something about it? Yes, but do we want the responsibility of managing it? And that's really the question I'm going to explore with you in this webinar. So, you see, having someone else choose for us is always easier. Our job, our education, we've generally brought up with instructive parents, instructive bosses, even a God. We get instructions from God and their chosen people, whether they are prophets or avatars or sometimes big gurus. It's easy to receive instructions. Having someone else choose sometimes, our spouse also of course is easier. That happens a lot in this part of the country. We choose religions where if we receive instructions on how to conduct your life and what is good and what is bad, or what is heaven and what is hell, it's a lot easier, right? So many people have followed that before me, and there will be millions after me who will, follow the same instructions and perhaps live a good life, right? A pious life. It's easier, of course, no doubt about that. And when we have problems, we procrastinate, we ignore, we shove them under the carpet, sometimes consciously pretend that they don't exist, all the time, somewhere at the back of our mind, hoping that they will go away. Unfortunately, they don't. So here is this man, Scott M Peck, who's written one of the most wonderful books, in my opinion, that the world has seen. It's called The Road Less Traveled. And he articulates this beautifully, and through this webinar I'm going to read some of these quotations or excerpts from these books out to you. He says, we attempt to avoid problems instead of solving them, hoping they will go away by procrastination, ignoring them, forgetting them, pretending they don't exist. Not taking responsibility, he says, is a sign of mental illness. And then he goes on to say, few of us can escape being neurotic or character disordered to at least some degree. This is because the problem of distinguishing what we are and what we are not responsible for in this life is one of the greatest problems of human existence. It is never completely solved. We must continually reassess where our responsibilities lie and make our choices actively. Extremely beautiful, in my opinion. I would like to quickly tell you, neurotic people, according to Scott M Peck in psychotherapy, is about people who will take extreme responsibility for everything and blame themselves and all of that. Character disordered, on the other hand, do not take any responsibility. And Scott M Peck also in the book talks about how it is sometimes easier for psychotherapists to get breakthroughs with neurotic people because they are able to take responsibility if they can, right? It's easier for them rather than people who will not take responsibility, on the other hand of things. So the process of taking responsibility or choosing what to be responsible for and what not to be responsible for, he says, is not painless. And he says we must have the willingness and capacity to suffer continual self-examination. This is not inherent in any of us. It doesn't come naturally to us, but we must train ourselves to do this. Problems do not go away. They must be worked through, or else they remain forever a barrier to the growth and development of our spirit. Clearly, if we want to solve our problems, we've got to work at them. When we have to work at them, we've got to continuously evaluate. We've got to first take responsibility, then evaluate where our responsibilities lie and do not lie, and make those choices. There is no easy answer. But if we do not do that, problems will remain. Our feedback from our bosses, our workplaces will remain. Our troubles with our spouses will remain. Societal problems will remain, but we've got to decide where our responsibilities lie and try and take action on those. And all this action of taking responsibility and taking action to solve life's problems is about growing up. And as I shared before, it's difficult growing up. It's easier to take answers from people, from religious heads, from holy books, from our bosses and our parents and God herself. But it's very difficult to take responsibility for our own selves, choose our own rules, and grow up. changing and challenging our own mental models, our belief systems is extremely difficult, and yet we must do it. Delaying gratification is difficult. Taking decisions for ourselves, choosing our own path, seeking rather than being told. Repeat, seeking rather than being told. Confronting and solving life's problems is difficult. And you cannot solve life's problems except by solving them. So pick a choice. Do you want to or you don't? If you want to, then you've got to do something about it. Our inability to confront these difficulties determines our ability or inability to confront these difficulties determines our mental health. And it enables us to grow. Grow how? Mentally, spiritually, emotionally, morally, health-wise, physical health-wise, at work, in life, in all dimensions of life. If we want growth, we grow in every dimension just by a decision to start working at the problems and finding ways to grow. I have a guru, as a lot of Indians would, I guess. So my guru is a person called Sadhguru Jaggi Vasudev, a deeply insightful, very challenging sort of person. And about 6 years ago, I went through my first meditation sort of course with him and through himself, in Delhi. And I heard him say this: work is an expression of who you are. So it is you who must be worked at. You see, we will, this is more in context of a work situation or a job and things like that, right? So if you're having problems at work or actually anywhere else, most likely the challenge is not at the workplace with the boss or the junior and with the spouse or parents at home or whatever. Most likely it will be something within you which is causing some sort of strain, right? And bringing it back into the context of work, it is an expression of who you are. And so if life and work are, work-life balance, I generally tend to discourage that sort of thinking. Yes, you want balance in life. You want balance in while doing at work, and you want to balance your life in all dimensions of life. Work-life balance, okay, as if work is not life. I have difficulties wrapping my head around work-life balance kind of terminology. So I try and stay away, encourage you to stay away from that. Even work is life, and we cannot live a schizophrenic life that we are somebody else at home and somebody else at work. We're just a continuous human being at work, at life, on the road, at a social party, everything, right? That's probably a more fulfilling way of living and looking at it as well. Sadhguru also says that the greatest thing you can do is to live life to your peak. I mean, what a wonderful thing to say. I mean, it's really simple, and you would say, well, okay, hundreds of people have said it, but it just means so much. I mean, imagine, I'm not sure if it was George Bernard Shaw or Rudyard Kipling. Somebody said that life is, when you're on your deathbed, a way to look at it would be whether has life completely taken everything, have you given everything to life that you have nothing left in you. What a wonderful way to, pass away from this world it would be. So fulfilling, right? And you've lived to your peak, you've done everything, you've been consumed by life. I think that was the term that, I think it was G.B. Shaw who used it. So Shama Futeali, in India there's been a very big ornithologist called Salim Ali. Shama was his niece, and she died pretty early, I think 36 or something. But she was a wonderful writer, and she would go in colleges all over India, and people would ask her, how do you write so beautifully? And she would say that learn to live and you shall learn to write. Once again, this is laden with meaning, right? Just learn to live, start to observe, and you will learn to write. If you have to learn the language to write or the expression to write, you can, once again, you can learn that. But you know, the observation or finding, not living at the surface really, going a little deeper, and once you do that, your expression, you will find that expression in whatever language you are good at. So, assuming you like the idea of growth, and so you do want to grow, so let's explore what are some of the tools for growth. And once again, I'm going to go back to these books and Scott M Peck and others. So, you know, Scott M Peck explores delaying gratification, taking responsibility, dedication to truth, and balancing. These are among the 4 top things that came out for me from the book. I'm going to explore the first 3, you know, in the course of these slides. I'm going to repeat them: delaying gratification, taking responsibility, and dedication to truth. So let's explore what delaying gratification means. It is a process of scheduling the pain and pleasure of life in such a way as to enhance the pleasure by meeting and experiencing the pain first and getting over and done with it. He brings up an example of icing on the cake. So if you like icing, and you know, a lot of people tend to eat the icing first and the cake later. He says actually it will be a good thing to train our children, you know, in eating the cake first and the icing later, so that you can get done with what is not so pleasant, or even if it's pleasant, keeping something which is more pleasant for later. And so experience the pleasantness later and experience the pain and the suffering as soon as possible. That is delaying gratification. Many more examples, you know, and I'm sure you can reflect in your life and you know, look at day-to-day. When you have immediate, you know, small things, more difficult. We always love to do at work, you know, mostly we would love to do things that we really enjoy doing. For example, I personally, I love ideas. Okay, so I love spending time in strategy and in coaching and mentoring people. I love to go out for walks with people and, you know, talk to them if they're having some challenges at work, or if I want to share some feedback, or they have something to talk to me about, even a resignation letter. Sometimes we'll go out for a walk with people. I love doing all of that stuff, right? It's just comes naturally to me. And very often I catch myself trying to avoid all that difficult email conversation with a client who's unhappy once in a while, right? And or writing a proposal. I am very good at writing, but I just hate writing proposals. And every time it's the last minute that the proposal will go out. And that also happens because, you know, I'm responsible for it, right? But you know, there is this sense of, you know, avoiding that pain of writing a proposal. I'm getting better, okay, because I'm more conscious of it, but I'm just accepting my humanity that that's how everyone behaves, everyone. Yeah, we don't like to delay our, we like to have our pleasures now and leave the pain, push out the pain as much as possible. It doesn't work. Stephen Covey, your life doesn't just happen. Whether you know it or not, it is carefully designed by you. The choices, after all, are yours. You choose happiness, you choose sadness, you choose your decisiveness, you choose ambivalence, you choose success, you choose failure, you choose courage, and you choose fear. He is spot on. If you just look at yourself every time, you know, and I'll go a little bit into philosophy, but in the Hindu religion, there's a book called the Gita. There is a beautiful point about karma. The point is that everything that you do is, so karma can be taken as action or duty or whatever. But so anything that you do is karma, but even inaction is karma. So it's not that only the act of doing something is karma, but inaction is also karma, because you made a choice. The moment you make choices to do or not to do, it's a choice, right? You've chosen decisiveness or you've chosen ambivalence. Yeah, and this determines how we make choices and what happens. There are consequences for any kind of choosing. Consequence does not mean something wrong here. It just means that there will be a consequence of an action, and action includes inaction. Stephen Covey, in his 7 Good Habits of Effective People, I do not recall the book, says that proactive people recognize that they are response-able. Yeah, they don't blame genetics, circumstances, conditions, or conditioning for their behavior. They know they choose their behavior. It's extremely important for us to reflect. If we want our growth, we have to make active choices, which are going to be difficult. We will suffer making uncomfortable choices. We will suffer questioning our belief systems, our faiths, our ill bodies, getting up early morning for a run, doing something about the cholesterol getting added in the heart, or an aching knee, or just simply age catching up, or just our work lives dragging, anything. It's all going to be difficult to break status quo. But I'm sorry, if you want to grow, we cannot blame anything. We've got to make a choice and we've got to take responsibility for it. The next point is about dedication to truth. Extremely important, because when we ignore new information, we often ignore it actively, viciously, even attempting to manipulate the world so as to make it conform our view of reality. I would request you to reflect on this a little bit. Very few of us along life question our mental models. Very few among us. We form opinions and judgments, and it's our lives go by and those opinions and judgments don't break. It's important for us to have what Scott M Peck means with dedication to truth is have an openness and an ability to be open to new data. And we constantly receive new data which very often challenges our mental models, our opinions and our judgments. I'm not saying that we have to change all our judgments. I'm just saying that we must be open to getting challenged with new data, and it is important, right? New data, taking new data. Maybe our opinion is wrong. Just that flexibility and being able to self-reflect. Maybe we are spot on with our judgments and how we think, our worldview of the world. Maybe our judgments about things at work are fine. Of course we've got to take a call. Maybe we do have a bad workplace, so take a call. Maybe we do need to break away, take a call. But the point is to reflect and say, okay, maybe there is something that I must explore about myself. And then very often you will find our judgments about colleagues, even when there is new data coming in, they're out trying to outreach, they're trying to reach out, and all of that happening, we will not change our mental models. So dedication to truth is an extremely important part of being able to in our journey of growth. I've actually talked about this slide already, but so problems between parents and children, husband, wives, and employer, employee, even between nations, persist because we stick to our outdated ways of thinking. Religious fanaticism occurs when we stick to a belief system, God-given, without investigation, without inquiry, without seeking. Conspiracy theories abound all the time, and it's like self-fulfilling theories. We believe in something, then we look at data and say, see, I found that. See, I told you that this is how it is. But I mean, come on, there is so much more data which we choose to ignore all the time. Yeah. I know that there are a lot of creationists out there who will even deny evolution, no matter how much data comes in. This is just an example, yeah, but just some obvious example which has been at the back of my mind when I was writing this presentation. So I've put it there. One doesn't want to, one ignores it. There are people who walk out of classes globally denying evolution. I recently, in my neighborhood park, I met a boy who said, oh, the earth was formed 7,000 years ago. I said, well, we've got dinosaur bones from a few million years ago. And he says, no, scientists are lying. He's been fed so badly about how things are meant to be, from God-given ideas of life and how things are, supposed to be. There's just no questioning the mental models, just ignoring. That is not growth, really. There's deep sadness in that, isn't it? Anyway, so Scott M Peck goes on to say, we must always hold truth to be more important and more vital to our self-interest than is our comfort. So truth more important than our comfort. Conversely, we must always consider our personal discomfort to be relatively unimportant in the search for truth. Mental health is an ongoing process of dedication to reality at all costs. I haven't read Gandhi's book, My Experiments with Truth, but I've read about it and I've read excerpts from it. That book and that man's journey is all about re-evaluating his mental models. And beautifully, the title could not be better, My Experiments with Truth. Either people should be steeped in the spiritual process or they must be steeped in science, because both are a quest. Important sort of dialogue in the context of our times. Both spirituality and science is about a quest, not about knowing. It's less about how it is meant to be or who told us. It is about our personal quest to find the truth. Just completely, sort of towards concluding my presentation, really, another name for growth is the pursuit of excellence. It is just moving forward from wherever you are. It does not matter where in life you are, whether if as a student you're not scoring well, or if work is not going really well, or whatever is the challenge with your life, or even if things are going very well, and wouldn't you want it to be better? If you do, it doesn't matter wherever you are, let's move forward. The next day, the next week, month, year, look back and see that, is life better? That must happen. You see, we set goals every year at the beginning, 1st of January or whatever, first week we will set goals. By the end of the year, of course, we've forgotten all goals. And if I were to ask you in December, imagine us meeting on 20th December and I ask you that, so how has your year been? How would you give answers? You would say, yes, it has been good, or not been so good or bad or whatever. And more often than not, you would be saying that on a very subjective sort of feeling that would be evoked when I ask you that question. But you wouldn't have any objectivity in that answer. That would not exist, that objectivity wouldn't exist, because you have not set goals and you have not measured yourself whether you have moved forward from the time that you set your goals. Whether your goals have been met. Have you progressed in those goals? It's not about 100% meeting. Have you progressed? And if you have, then you will be able to give an objective answer. And by the way, I'm saying, I do this all the time as well, right? But The only thing is when you're building muscle and constantly revisiting and setting goals and evaluating yourself objectively. So moving forward from wherever we are. Continuous improvement is another way. In my worldview, continuous improvement equals excellence. It's excellence is not about a point in a certain ladder of achievement, in ladder of success that okay, you are excellent or you have achieved excellence. It's about continuous improvement from wherever you are. And discipline is a necessary tool towards continuous improvement. There is no other way. When we set goals, we lose our goals through the year simply because we are not disciplined about relooking at our goals. We're ambivalent about it, and we lose goals. And yeah, discipline is the only way and the only necessary tool. And Scott M Peck beautifully in one line says discipline is wisdom, and vice versa. Just so deep, so beautiful, in my opinion. I'll repeat this: discipline is wisdom, and vice versa. So thank you. That's about it. I have some recommended readings for you. Road Less Traveled by Scott M Peck, Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, and a wonderful book called Siddhartha by a German philosopher called Hermann Hesse. All these three books have, among others, I mean, there's no doubt there have been a few more, and some wonderful, wonderful people. But these three books have been sort of landmark for me, and so I highly recommend that you read them as well and see if you're willing to challenge yourself and challenge your mental models and maybe do a little experiment with life. So thank you. Please shoot your questions. I'm available right now. If you think of if you're hearing this presentation some other time, the recording, then happy to participate with you in the comments section once this presentation is up. So go ahead, Priyanka, over to you, or Mayank.
Well, that was a great session. Thank you, Rahul, for sharing these insights into personal growth and how one can lead a fulfilling life by focusing on it. Moving on, I'm sure you all have a few questions. Please press the raise hand button on the control panel to ask the question using your microphone, or type it in the chat box on your screen. Rahul, while the questions start coming in, would you like us to give a quick recap of the session since a few people joined in a little late?
Sure, Mayank. Little difficult. I'm so passionate about this that I'll sort of go over. But yeah, I'll quickly run through this presentation once again if you like. So, in the first few slides I've explored that, how we usually live, ignoring our challenges. We're diseased, but we prefer to maintain status quo. We get consumed by our life and sort of lose ourselves. Yeah, and generally, one, at least at some point in life, gets this feeling about a little mundane sort of boring routine sometimes, and there is the sense that life is difficult. Yeah, and it is. We of course wish it was easier, and yes, it is difficult, but it is not. And the only way to solve life's problems or challenges is by taking responsibility of it. I've explored in this presentation that having someone else choose for us, a god, a parent, a spouse, or a religion, whatever, is much easier. But unfortunately, our problems don't go away, by blaming or procrastinating or pretending that they don't exist. We've explored in this presentation that not taking responsibility is a sign of mental ill health, and that taking responsibility is a painful process. It is difficult, and we suffer in self-examination. Growing up is extremely difficult. We explored delaying our pleasures, things that we like, is extremely difficult. Or taking all decisions and taking responsibility for the consequences of those is extremely difficult. Choosing our own path instead of being told or being written somewhere and reading versus seeking. Seeking is more difficult than getting to know this is how it is. But our ability to confront these difficulties determines our mental health, and it enables us to grow in all aspects of life, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, physically, work, life, everywhere. We explored the tools for growth, and those tools are delaying gratification, taking responsibility, dedication to truth, and finding balance. And we've explored what delaying gratification is, and which is a process of scheduling the more difficult or the more painful things that we do not like to do, first, and delaying getting the pleasure of leisure, of a good life and whatever to later stages, right? So it just drew an analogy from my own work. I just hate writing proposals, and I delay them and do the more interesting things to me, sit on finance and review finance, coach a few people, discuss strategy and things like that, right? Which I love doing. So I try and fill my day with that and delay till I have absolute deadline which is burning, and then we'll roll out a proposal. I'm calling out my own weakness, my own inability to delay my own gratification very often. I'm just saying that, except that I'm a little more conscious about it. Yeah. Then we explored more about responsibility. We explored responsible behavior. We've explored that continuously re-evaluating our mental models is extremely important. It helps us reorient how we look at the world. It is an extremely important aspect of maintaining mental health. Because we don't have dedication to truth, challenges in our relationships, at work, even between nations exist. Because we're not constantly re-evaluating our mental models. If we do, we'd be able to, we'd have tools to deal with situations and solve them. We explored that it is more important and vital to put truth and the experiments with truth, if you like, over our own comfort. And conversely, our comfort, give it lesser value than exploring, taking in new data and changing our mental models if we must. And we explored what is growth, which in my opinion is pursuit of excellence. It is about moving forward from wherever you are. It is about continuous improvement. And we explored that discipline is the only tool available to us for continuous improvement. Discipline is wisdom, and wisdom is discipline. I hope it was a quick run through, Mayank. Yeah, questions are ready, then happy to answer. If there are none, then thank you.
Thank you for the quick recap, Rahul. We have a question by Siddharth, who wants to know what would be the near perfect definition of growth?
Wow, near perfect definition of growth. I don't know. I mean, it is continuous improvement. There is no perfect growth, right? It's just about growing. Wherever you are, just be better. And these are the tools: discipline. And if you set goals at the end of the year, when you're evaluating yourself, have you improved in the goals you set? And it's not like, at the starting of the year you set goals, and then at the end of the year you open that sheet and say, these are the goals I set. That makes no sense unless you're constantly determined frequency, looking at the goals you set and constantly measuring yourself. That's the only way to grow. That's really my answer to that question.
Thank you for answering that, Rahul. We have another question by Siddharth, who wants to know whether growth is contextual. How one can be sure that he or she understands growth in the right way. And just to add, Siddharth has seen a lot of people who relate growth with salary, a big house, big car. So how good is that materialistic growth?
So, there is, it's not about only growing in emotion and spirit and all of that, right? It's about material growth, absolutely. But, just like in business strategy, we have something called a balanced scorecard, right? All the top management schools teach a balanced scorecard. There is customer happiness, there is, finances. So there are multiple aspects to how a project or a business is running, multiple aspects to measuring it. It's not only finances, and that's true for us. I mean, would you like a life that you had all the money and an extremely ill body with which you can't do anything? Obviously not, right? It's a no-brainer. You want a healthy body so that you can enjoy wealth. Yeah, and so growth also has to be multidimensional. Even at work, it cannot only be about money. It has to be and must be about intellectual growth, about growth in our capability, about growth in our ability to work with people. What is business, right? So our ability to work with people. Are we going to mow down everybody and see our way through? Maybe that's a way of living. Is that a fulfilling way of living? Not in my opinion. Right? We have a screwed up world. Very often we look at our world and that's not a healthy way of living. So growth also, even in our own world, has to be multidimensional. It has to be at work. It has to be in our health, in our relationships, in our, even in how we think, right? When we are, by all means, people judging me as a CEO of a fairly decent-sized company doing well. What's wrong? There's nothing wrong. Do you see any problem? Absolutely not. I'm just a little overweight, all right, but I could beat a few people 15 years younger than me at a race even right now. But do I want growth? Absolutely. I recognize my areas of growth. I recognize that there are blockers in my behavior which are preventing me from growth. And I'm discovering that with a psychologist that I'm going to. Why am I going there? Is there anything wrong with me? Am I mentally ill? Absolutely not. Yeah, but I'm going there because there is some discomfort that I'm sensing about my own behavior, and I want to explore with somebody outside who can help me see my blind spots. That is growth to me. For example, just today because of a session earlier, I discovered that I have an inability to receive positive sort of affirmation. If somebody says something good about me, I squirm a little. I'm not able to gently and gracefully receive that thankfulness, that gratitude, that appreciation. On one hand, I'm sorry to say this, it comes from a CEO, I sometimes yearn for it, and when I receive it, I squirm. It's a silly way of living. And if there are some people who are perceptive might have observed that about me. And how horrible is it, right? It's a blocker in my growing. I would be more graceful and probably even more successful if I had that open, if I could receive an appreciation gracefully. Isn't that growth? Absolutely it is. That's my answer. Thank you.
I hope it answers your question, Siddharth. In case you have a follow-up question, please feel free to type it in. So Rahul, I have another question by Rohit. It's rather a story question where he has shared a few things which are going on in his life and he would want your opinion and guidance on them. So please be patient with me. It's a little long question. So Rohit, for the past 4 years, he has been focusing on two big goals. One is creating a very successful business, and second is clearing a very demanding exam of CA, Chartered Accountancy. And he seems to be failing at both ends. Now, after having put in 4 years, he's 27 years of age, and he feels time is not on his side, as he has a pressure to earn money, so he cannot 100% dedicate his time to studying for CA exam. And of course, he's of marriageable age, so that's a blocker there, which he feels. And if he starts working, starts making money, then it'll always be at the back of his mind that he has not completed his goal of being a CA. So can you just guide him a little here, because he says it's affecting his personal life and mental health a lot.
Okay, Rohit, I don't know if I can answer, and really help you, to be honest. I can't. And, I know what you might be going through. I can only empathize and, have a sense of the pain that you might be going through. But really, I can't help you. It's not an answer that I can give and you can live by that answer. I'm afraid you're going to, in the spirit of my presentation, you're going to have to find that answer for yourself, really. And I know that doesn't help, but what really I could advise you is perhaps take a step back, take a little break instead of, that's all I can say, take a little break, take a step back from life. And life has a tendency to consume you, right? And it happens to all of us. You just get consumed and you can't step back and reflect. So it's a good idea to just sort of take a rucksack and go for a hike for 15 days. Just head to the mountains, head to a beach, head to an ashram, head to, I don't know where, I don't know what gives you, or maybe all of those. Take a month off. You're anyways not working, right? Just take a little time off, step back, and allow a little openness and answers come to you. Allow a little openness and you bump into people who will give you the right answers. I'm hoping this presentation is at least a trigger, yeah, but you will have to find your own answers. It's not good enough for me to say, I cannot be playing around with your life by saying, yeah, drop CA. I can't do that. How can I choose for you? You have to choose for yourself. But the only thing I can recommend is that just take a little step back, yeah, for a few days, 15 days, 20 days, 30 days, yeah. Just step back a little, be in an environment, find a few people who you can talk to, consult a lot of people, maybe even, in India at least, there is this huge stigma about going to a psychotherapist or a psychologist or not. Please find somebody, right? Sometimes they're expensive, sometimes they're not so expensive. There's some wonderful people out there who charge a lot less because they want people to come to them, and they're almost in service mode. Please find somebody who can professionally help you there. They might help you unlock a few things about yourself, but they will not give you answers. They will only help you find the answers yourself so that you can take responsibility for that. That's all I would recommend.
Rahul, Rohit also wants to know whether if it's feasible to follow two big goals together, because specifically in his case, it's causing him a little trouble.
I mean, yeah, absolutely. Why would any one goal or whatever, stop clearing a CA exam or whatever else? I mean, of course, yeah, there is no one thing. You always, I mean, my goal sheet has some really big goals at the beginning of every year. So, of course, I must acknowledge that I've still not made my goal sheet for this year and 1 month down. So, but yeah, of course, we should have more goals. What does happen is, see, I heard this very beautiful thing sometimes, I don't recall where. I think it was a seminar series called Landmark Education, so many years ago. I'm not sure, just don't, I'm not trying to quote them or whatever, but I heard something very beautiful somewhere. that if you give yourself a big enough goal or several things, several big goals, life solves itself, sometimes. Your case might be different, but yeah, of course, you must set big goals. Be hags, big, hairy, audacious goals, as Jim Collins says in his book, Built to Last. Thanks, Mayank.
Hope this helps, Rohit, and we wish you all the best in finding answers in your life. So, Rahul, we are approaching towards the end of the presentation, and there's this one question that we would like to ask you. So, a lot of times you hear people talk, and there are presentations like similar to this one which we come across. So what would be a good next step for people who have joined in for the webinar today? So they have, I'm sure they have a lot of takeaways, but people who want to maybe implement this or seek personal growth, what would be a good next step for them? I'm sure they don't want to feel very positive right now and just kind of sleep and wake up in the morning to find things are messy again.
Yes, Mayank, it's called graveyard enlightenment or something like that, right? That when you go to a graveyard and suddenly you feel, oh, I am going to do this now, I will solve all this, and then you sleep 2 days and it's gone, right? You lose all that breakthroughs and all of that. So no easy answer. There's no one thing that you can do. It's about discipline, but here is my serious recommendation would be to start with these 3 books. Road Less Traveled, Conversations with God, and Siddhartha. I've found, Conversations with God is very often, or Road Less Traveled, is next to my bed, I just pick it up, read, and wherever it opens, I read a few pages. It's become like that. Not all the time, right? I'm not sort of obsessed with them, but every now and then I would pick it up and just read a few pages. It's just so wonderful, full of insights, and you find breakthroughs. That's how life works. So I highly recommend these books if you, just start with them. That's it.
Thank you, Rahul, once again for such a knowledgeable session. We are sure everyone found your presentation very interesting and insightful. A big thank you to all the attendees for joining us today. I would like to announce that our next webinar is on Crash Course on New Product Development on 18th of February by Mukesh Gupta. Mukesh is a director and customer advocate at SAP and an experienced design thinking and innovation coach. He has led design thinking based workshops across countries like India, China, Singapore, and Australia. This webinar will serve as a crash course where you will learn not only the basic concepts of product development and design thinking methodology, but also some critical aspects that you need to keep in mind while developing new products. So stay tuned.